Below is your requested creative 1,300-word article with the title, "I totally forgot a Chief O'Brien detail that makes his Star Trek run even more impressive." Chief Miles O'Brien has always been the quiet heartbeat of Star Trek. While captains deliver stirring speeches and science officers unlock the mysteries of the galaxy, O'Brien keeps the lights on, literally. He's the man behind the transporter console, the one who can coax miracles out of failing systems, and the one who somehow suffers more trauma per season than most Starfleet officers experience in a lifetime. But recently, while rewatching both The Next Generation and Deep Space Nine, I stumbled upon a detail I had completely forgotten, one that makes O'Brien's already impressive Star Trek legacy even more extraordinary. It's something so simple, so understated, yet so telling about who O'Brien is, what he represents, and why he quietly stands as one of the most important characters in all of Star Trek. And it all comes down to this. Miles O'Brien once held a rank lower than most of the ensigns whose lives he saved, and he still outperformed nearly everyone around him. This isn't a dig at Starfleet hierarchy. It's a celebration of how O'Brien, despite being an enlisted man, repeatedly proved himself indispensable at levels far beyond his official title. And once you remember this detail, a new appreciation emerges for just how remarkable his Star Trek run truly was. One, the forgotten detail. O'Brien wasn't an officer, and that changes everything. We're so accustomed to Star Trek characters being lieutenants, commanders, and captains that it's easy to forget Miles Edward O'Brien was none of those things. He wasn't a commissioned officer at all. He was non-commissioned, holding the rank of Chief Petty Officer. In a universe where titles matter, where even junior lieutenants command away teams and dictate protocol, O'Brien's position stands out. He occupied a strange and fascinating space, above enlisted crewmen, but below every ensign who had ever stepped foot out of a Starfleet Academy classroom. Yet, despite the rank chart, everyone treated him as the authority in his field. On The Next Generation, he basically ran the transporter room. By Deep Space Nine, he was de facto head of all station operations. Officers followed his orders. Commanders leaned on his expertise. Captains trusted him with station-saving miracles on a weekly basis. And remembering that he accomplished all this as someone technically outranked by every fresh-faced ensign straight out of the academy only amplifies his achievement. The galaxy runs on experience, not rank, and O'Brien proves it. Starfleet is built like a naval organization, but unlike its real-world counterpart, the franchise rarely explores enlisted life. O'Brien is the exception, a window into the working-class backbone that keeps Starfleet functioning. What makes this detail so extraordinary is the sheer contrast. A 22-year-old ensign with zero real-world experience technically outranked him, but O'Brien had decades of engineering, combat, and survival experience under his belt. And at every turn, Starfleet officers deferred to him not because they had to, but because they knew he was the best at what he did. O'Brien represents the idea that expertise transcends rank, that mastery matters more than stripes on a uniform, that the Federation, for all its bureaucracy, still recognizes practical brilliance. Watching Deep Space Nine through this lens turns O'Brien into something even more impressive, a mentor to the officers who technically outranked him. Nog is the best example. As soon as he enters Starfleet, Nog becomes O'Brien's student, not in a formal sense, but in a practical one. When Nog earns his ensign pip, he does outrank O'Brien. Yet he still looks up to the chief as the definition of professionalism, competence, and resilience. O'Brien isn't just a character. He's an institution. 3. The TNG days. A quiet start that hinted at greatness. It's easy to forget that O'Brien's Star Trek journey started small. Really small. He didn't even have a name in his first few appearances. He was simply the transporter chief, a background presence who materialized away teams and delivered the occasional alarmed look when the transporter buffer fizzled. But then a funny thing happened. As the writers leaned on him more and more, he revealed a quality that would define him for years: dependability. And that dependability made the Enterprise run smoother. By the time O'Brien settled into his role, he had become almost symbolic of the ship's operational excellence. Transporter accidents still happened, sure, but without O'Brien, half the crew probably would have dissolved into quantum mist by Season 3. Yet even then, he was a non-commissioned officer doing an officer's job. The Enterprise was full of lieutenants, but there was only one man Captain Picard wanted behind that console when things went sideways. That consistency paved the way for his move to Deep Space Nine, where he stepped into what might be the most underappreciated promotion in the franchise, from transporter chief to the man responsible for keeping an entire alien space station functioning. For DS9, the ultimate testament to his ability, DS9 is where the O'Brien as NCO detail becomes truly astonishing. Think about it. Here is an enlisted man put in charge of rebuilding a broken Cardassian space station, understanding and reverse engineering alien technology, managing a crew of both Starfleet and Bajoran personnel, keeping defenses online during constant Dominion pressure, saving the station from catastrophic failure every 5 episodes, rewriting entire protocols that Cardassians built into obsolete systems. Miles O'Brien is not just an engineer. He's a miracle worker in the truest sense. And the show's leadership knows it. Sisko, Kira, Dax, Bashir, even Odo, they all rely on him. They trust him to solve problems no one else can. They give him responsibility that rivals any lieutenant commanders. Once you remember he technically outranked no one, the scope of what he accomplished becomes jaw-dropping. This man was keeping DS9 together with spit, wires, Cardassian resentment, and sheer willpower, and he still had time to be a devoted husband and father. 5. The trauma factor. O'Brien's suffering means even more in context. O'Brien's unofficial Star Trek title is the most tortured man in Starfleet. But when you combine that with his rank, you get something even more poignant. Starfleet officers undergo academy training in psychology, command stress, emergency leadership, and crisis response. O'Brien didn't get any of that. His training was hands-on, practical, pragmatic, and often learned under fire. Yet he endures more trauma than entire Starship crews combined. Surviving the Setlik III massacre, being wrongfully imprisoned for decades in his mind, enduring body horror transporter malfunctions, living through a year of isolation in a hard time, watching crewmates die, being thrust into time travel and war again and again, experiencing repeated Dominion threats, fear campaigns, and sabotage. He shoulders all of this and still shows up for work the next day. He still fixes the station. He still mentors younger officers. He still jokes with Bashir. He still loves Keiko and his kids. That resilience is what makes him the soul of Deep Space Nine. And again, remembering he wasn't even an officer makes it all more impressive. Not because enlisted personnel are weaker, but because the franchise framed rank as the gateway to responsibility. O'Brien broke that system by being too good to ignore. 6. Why this detail matters more now than ever. In modern Star Trek discourse, fans often celebrate the captains who deliver iconic speeches or the science officers who discover cosmic truths. But O'Brien represents something quietly inspirational. The idea that you